Oh, the complications when you think your boss might be Jesus. Here on Viewed Your Please, a vile visit to Bajor. My name is Joseph.
I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, we have a bit of an announcement for the Viewed Your Please community. Don't worry, it's not too dire, but we don't want anybody to be caught unawares. To make a very long story short, Peter and I have very full schedules over the next month or so. And it's going to be a little difficult for us to regularly both record and publish episodes. Don't bore you with the details. So I want everyone to know that when you hear this episode on October 9th, that'll be our last episode about Deep Space Nine until November 6th. So we're going to take a few weeks off of doing the show in terms of putting out produced episodes. We're going to still be recording and kind of getting some things squared away in the background. Then have to do with like the technical distribution of the show and some other things that we need to make sure change because they haven't been working particularly well that don't worry about and you should never concern yourself with as our listeners. But we'll only be absent essentially from your podcast feeds for 2 weeks. The 16th and the 23rd we will be off, but on the 30th we'll actually be pulling out one of our Patreon episodes because it's the day before Halloween. So we think that would be a great time to put out our episode we did about Hellraiser. Which was a fantastically interesting experience for Peter and I. We did it because Andrew Robinson plays the male lead in the movie, but it ended up being a really fun and I think genuinely engaging conversation about both.
Almost too engaging.
Yeah, it was too engaging. We have real deep takes about stories about demonic temptation and also the production of low budget horror. And so it was a lot of fun. So we'll put that out for everybody on the 30th. And then on the 6th, November 6th, we'll be back with more Deep Space Nine episodes. So we thank you. Thanks for letting us take a little bit of a break. We rarely miss a Thursday. I think since we started Enterprise, aside from a few weeks that we took off after we finished Enterprise going into Deep Space Nine, we haven't missed a single Thursday in terms of putting content on the feed. So I got to bring the streak to an end. It's just to preserve our sanity. So
I want to just step off here to the side and say I love this fucking show. We're sitting here watching these DS9 episodes. We did all of Voyager. We dabbled into Picard, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, fucking Enterprise.
Even Lower Decks.
Lower Decks is great, but I mean, that's a different thing all entirely. Walking in, I think, to one of these episodes, I made my wife watch this one with me. And, it's not like she's rolling her eyes or anything, but again, just what a great change of gear to have a reward waiting for you for the last episode you watched, the last 10 episodes you watched. These meta plots moving forward, big and small. And again, I mean, this is stuff that came out February 13th, 1995. It absolutely holds up to 2025 standards. It surpasses a lot of 2025 stuff. I just finished off Alien Earth and Peacemaker. Those were super great. Well, there's one more for Peacemaker, but put DS9 right in there. It's a happy part of my week to come in and watch us, and just stuff that's very clearly squarely Berman era Trek. And it's just punching so far above its weight class for the money that went into these episodes and the amount of special effects budget and everything else, and just solid ass storytelling. Yeah. So as we go into Deep Space Nine season 3, episode 15, I want to say that I'm so happy that I never watched any of this stuff back in the day. What an excellent time capsule to have waiting for me. I know we've got the Dominion War, and that's really where a lot of people focus their attention on Deep Space Nine, but just all this lead up, world building, and exploration of stuff that we've already established in Berman era Trek. It's just wonderful, and it's a real high point of my week getting to sit down and watch these things.
And it is kind of a unique journey that we're capturing here that I don't think we necessarily intended to do, but fell into in a way, in that you haven't watched it, which I think continues to amaze lots of folks because we have gotten more and more viewers and we've continued to grow the show. And I think the fact that you have participated in a Star Trek podcast for, I think before we started, this was more than 6 years. It's been 7.5 years since we started it. I'm not quite sure exactly how long we've been doing Deep Space Nine at this point, but that sounds about right. And somehow had never watched any substantive amount of Deep Space Nine ever. So you have all of this rich knowledge and understanding of the Trek universe, like a true nerd really would, and yet you've never actually seen what is the consensus pick of the best Star Trek show. And it's like this delicate piece of a puzzle that's finally being completed slowly before everyone's eyes. And the journey everyone else is getting to have, like I have like my own subplot, right? Like I'm picking up things on rewatch. There's going to be some that I talk about in this episode too, that I'm deeply appreciating the perspective that I'm able to have, because some of this I haven't watched since I was in college. Some, I don't rewatch every episode when I go back through the show. And other times it's just I have a different perspective because of the fact we're doing the show and we've discussed everything else and been thinking about the context of all of it. And also what you're able to provide as it relates to insight that you're having as you're watching for the first time that adds to my own. Like I talked about so much last week with Odo as a child, and how that has helped me understand that character way better after hearing you say that and really seeing how true it is. So yeah, I know we're self-flating ourselves about our show, but we enjoy doing it for a reason. Like it's fun for us to have this discussion and explore and discover these things, and I'm really happy that other people enjoy it too. So
A real concern that we had was that Deep Space Nine was going to be too good, and it was going to be too hard to pull laughs and comedy out of it, which is certainly,
to
a
a degree,
leg that
true.
we stand on.
A little bit true. And we still find it. It's just,
I mean, it's still out there, but as we've been able to trade the low hanging fruit of Voyager and Enterprise bad episodes that are easy to rag on, like it's been very fulfilling just to swap that out for great Star Trek and be able to just have, real nerd conversations and hold the audience at the levels that we have still. So I'm really having a great time with this. And I'm so happy that this is out there and that you guys are along the journey with us.
Indeed. And so we're saying all that just because, we're taking a break. We don't want anyone to think that like we're burnt out. It's actually quite the opposite. We've probably enjoyed doing the show more than we ever have. It's just a matter of some time that I need temporarily to fix our distribution and get caught up on editing and not feel like I have no life whatsoever. So that said, this episode was written by David S. Cohen, Martin A. Weiner. Those are not names we've seen before because this was a script written on spec, a rarity for Deep Space Nine, directed by Les Landau. Destiny is Mark's, as I said, leading in last week, Mark's the show trying to get back to this plot point that it put into place in the premiere and really hasn't done much with since, aside from some political maneuvering between Kai Wynn and Commander Sisko, and that is, oh yeah, oops, Ben Sisko is the prophesized chosen one of the Bajoran religion. That probably matters.
It matters. They do a great job in this episode confronting him with that, while also moving forward some common sense discussions about this part of space that is become very problematic, and holds a lot of great potential. The beginning of this show was about, we're going to have a space station and we're going to bring the adventures to a stationary place. And the vehicle for telling those stories, instead of the Enterprise flying from planet to planet, we're going to have this space dilemma ovipositor docked right next to the space station. And our monsters of the week, our dilemma of the week, will be spit out by this thing. And as they got a better idea of where they could go with the show, and they started ramping up this Dominion thing, I think the meta plot really established itself firmly. So yeah, you've got this religious sub-thread going, and also you've got this, how does hyper-competent Federation start to deal with this huge blind spot of problems? And I've said several times, like, why is there not an Excelsior just permanently docked on the other side of this wormhole? Why is there not some sort of advanced warning out there? And I love that this episode focuses on trying to create some sort of a communication relay system between the Alpha Quadrant and the Gamma Quadrant. And I love that it builds that premise forward under this shaky alliance between the Federation, Bajor, and now, because it chewed up and spit out, which I find myself thinking more and more about that episode as the stuff progresses, and Kai Wynn's importance in all of that, because there's clear stop signs along the way in this from a religious angle, and the fact that Kai Wynn was as adamant about pushing forward on that, again, to reinforce her legacy as the one that has helped develop this peace treaty between Bajor and Cardassia, that the politics outweigh the religion on multiple fronts, and ultimately it's for the good. But
if you think about the discussion we had about the end of season 1, when Kai Wynn is still Vedic Wynn and stages her assassination attempt to Vedic Bareil, and the whole plot that develops as a consequence of her essentially revealing to the audience her lack of faith despite her high religious standing. We had a really good discussion about it, about how, like, the problem with Kai Wynn is that Kai Wynn requires a level of evidence and proof and direction and supremacy that cannot be given to someone. Like, that's not how faith works. And Kira, as we noted at the time, is the one that actually genuinely has faith. And that's the conflict between the two, and Bareil too, right? And we see the result of that. We see Kira and Bareil have faith experiences that we never see Vedic Wynn have. She even laments to that extent. Or Kai Wynn. And so to her in the background as this figure who's more political than religious, despite being essentially the Bajoran Pope, it is a fact and evidence of this continuing problem that she has, that she ultimately is her greatest liability and the reason for why she is really a terrible villain in the show. And she's not even in this episode yet. Like you said, she casts a sort of shadow because there's clearly a religious element to what's going on here that she has chosen to simply ignore.
To that religious element too, we talked a lot in Voyager, I want to say, about the marked absence of religion in Berman era Trek, and Roddenberry as well. I see now why that is in the back half of Berman Trek, because there's so much of it in here. Like, there's not solid.
This is just the start. Sure. That's the other thing. I want you to go on, but I want to make it clear. It's kind of striking that it hasn't been on screen much, because this shit is so prominent in the back half of this show. This is a huge part of what goes on. And it's an interesting why Rod Moore has a lot to do with that here in a little bit.
Phrasing on it, because it's not Catholicism or any other established Earth religion that you're getting. You don't hear Starfleet officers saying, "Oh my God, oh God, no." By and large, there might be some of that in the movies, but Federation is very agnostic. Starfleet's very agnostic. And then you've got Bajor, which is the complete opposite. It is rooted in this faith, and they've done this interesting job of explaining it away. And it's something that really, about halfway through the episode, as they're discussing this prophecy, it's like, this isn't some esoteric old prophecy by theoretical gods and ancient religion from caves and drawings on the whatever. Like, we've established that their identified religious host is super advanced aliens. You've tangled with these guys. You know that time is a flat circle to them. And I'm so happy that Kira and Reese hammers these, like, I had 3 lines written in there. Like, you know that they perceive time on, like, this weird thing. Like, they absolutely have access to future events, and they absolutely have the ability to communicate with people in the effective past. Like, this prophecy, it's not, is it feasible at this point? The conversation should be, is it pure? Has it been distorted by translations and time and personal agenda? That
scene, and I in a way, I hate to pluck it out of its sequence because it's perfectly timed within the episode, and but at the same time, it demands the most analysis. So maybe doing it now is right, but it is the moment when Sisko is finally forced to reckon with something he has desperately attempted not to think about, and that Kira, for her part, has attempted not to think about, which is, what if it's all true? What if you're the emissary of the prophets and, like, my religion is actually true? like all of the things that go with it, including what that means for you and what that might mean for me. And there's two ways to handle that, and they manage to thread the needle in a way that they get to do both, and it's perfectly Star Trek. It's Sisko doesn't want it to be true. He's desperate to not be a religious figure because he is a good atheist Starfleet officer. He has seen terrible things. He is not a man rooted in a particular faith tradition, aside from my faith tradition is I hate the Borg because they killed my wife. Like it's that he's not that guy. And yet he is put in this position where he is invested with this sort of power, but he has treated it up to this point as like, the primitives think I'm, they're because I talked to some aliens, whatever, right? He's able to rationalize it. But now it's taking another step. Now there's something going on that his normal interpretation of things as a good Starfleet officer no longer applies. And Kira, who is religious, who believes in these things, has to bridge the gap for him so that he can rationalize what's happening and understand it in his frame. And the way that she does that to say, okay, you want to explain this like a Starfleet officer? Here it is. You know that there are aliens. You call them wormhole aliens. I call them the prophets. But we know they're real, and we know that they perceive time in a nonlinear fashion, that they can see the future and the past, and they communicate through metaphor. You know that. And he agrees, like, yes, I've experienced all of this personally. Like, great. All right, with that in place, how is it this not logical that they saw a future event and communicated it to someone in the past, and the metaphorical interpretation of that was the prophecy that they've written down, and that it is in fact coming true? Like, is that not in keeping with everything that we know about this circumstance? It is a perfect synthesis of there's a very much a like science fiction Starfleety way to look at all of this, but it requires you to take a leap of faith that is actually what's happening. Because as Sisko points out, I have no actual evidence that this is true. There's mundane explanations for everything that we've witnessed. And the only person who's had this experience with the prophets is me. It's perfect.
He doesn't talk about it in this episode, but on top of this apprehension about, I didn't sign up to be Space Jesus over here. Like,
yeah.
I didn't even want this job.
I got it on my first day here. I came down, met the space pope, got a quest, came back with an orb. It was awful.
This isn't something I signed up for. I don't want this responsibility. And also, I do want to be a Starfleet officer. And he can't just turn around in a report and say, I derailed this major project because of a prophecy. Because this religious subcontext in this area of space, like, you can't justify these decisions at this point to your bosses, to the powers that be, in this very high tension environment where there's a looming massive war threat because of old texts. So this guy's really caught in several pinch points, and it's excellent. And I'm so happy it's happening to Ben Sisko because this guy's got the shoulders for it. And, again, against the backdrop of all of this, and by the way, I just fixed Earth's history.
Yeah.
There I was, I think 2 weeks ago, back in time at the most bloodiest fucking revolution of modern, semi-modern history. And now here I am trying to keep the wormhole from collapsing and trapping me on the other end of space.
He lives an active lifestyle. All right. One of the kind of like meta discussion note, Ron Moore's name comes up a lot in the Memory Alpha in terms of the discussion of how this episode got made. And it was quite a tortured experience, apparently, just finding the right story. I feel like they absolutely did find the right story.
Nailed it.
And Ron Moore as a name that is really tightly associated with the spiritual plotline of Deep Space Nine should come to absolutely the shock of no one, because of the body of work he creates, not only here, but certainly afterwards in Battlestar Galactica. And I think if there's a lesson, it's that he's good at that if he has restraint, if he's being restrained, if he's told he can't have it his way.
If you want to hear the whole breakdown of this thing in painful detail, go watch our Battlestar Galactica, was it Viper?
Razor. Yeah.
Because everything Joe's about to say is dead on the money then, and I see exactly where it's at now. The question I have for Ron Moore is, what came first, Ronald Moore or the Prophets? Like, do you think this jump started his obsession with religion and sci-fi, or do you think he...
Oh, it was in TNG. He's Mr. Klingon. He loves the Klingon afterlife. This guy he's on it, right? He loves spiritual elements in sci-fi. I think that's a big part of his personality, and it's a big part of everything he's ever made. And it's just a difference between being a voice in the room that can guide that discussion and then kind of being the man making all the decisions and not necessarily having any idea of what he's trying to do or where it's going or if it makes sense or if it really communicates what he intends to his audience, which is
he's sitting there
where he got jammed up on Battlestar Galactica was doing too much and not doing enough at the end. And this is the exact opposite. It's built up perfectly over the course of the run of the show.
Do you think he was sitting there with a piece of paper in front of him and it's like this graph and he's looking at Klingons, like things I like, and it's like Klingons. And like the one chart's like very high shit on their face, and then their axis is amount of religion I can cram in that episode. And he's like stroking his beard. And he's like, what if I decrease the amount of shit on their face, but ramp up the amount of religion?
It's like sliders in character creation.
I need more religion. How do I fit more religion? I'll just bring down the ridge level. And if by containing the amount of shit on their face to just the nose, wow, I can have on-screen appearances by gods. Star Trek has shown me that you can't have the inmates running the nut house. And we really fleshed that out hard in Picard. And Ronald Moore and Battlestar Galactica is perhaps the clear example of that. Like, it's not an on-screen presence, but you can't do just the stuff you like. There needs to be some third party in the room representing the public interest that says...
you smooth out your edges. Like reminds you, like, hey, normal people have to watch this. Like, you are aware of that?
What if this wasn't just a user audience of only your IRC religious fetish chat room? You're going too far. And I'm sure it's hard to rein someone like Patrick Stewart in the case of Picard season 1. But here, Ronald Moore, who's executive producing at this point?
Ira Stephen Bear.
Yeah. Chill out, dude. You've gone too far.
And that's what Ira was good at doing. He kept everybody on the rails. But it's enough talking about the meta. Let's talk about the episode. We open with a station log, which, again, we don't do that all that often. Setting the stage of the fact that they're going to be building the subspace relay to communicate through the wormhole, which seems like a really practical thing to do for a million reasons at this point. And then is it going to be a joint Federation, Bajoran, and Cardassian mission, which is a first. We need to do a scene though where Quark gets some lines, so we're going to do that in the teaser, where we're setting up the quarters. We're trying to make sure that these scientists, who we find out are all women, feel comfortable, like guests, not prisoners. And of course, that means our boy Quark sees a financial opportunity, and he shows up to drop off some Kanar and try and convince everybody that he's going to be making a killing at this, only to have Dax very helpfully point out that the stock of Kanar he's been sitting on is gone bad.
Armin Shimmerman's performance was so strong in this scene, I stopped it. I made my wife come in and watch it and sit through the whole episode with me. Again, his ability to project facial and body language through all of that makeup is so good. He was there for the chewed up and spit out reception. He made the cake specifically for Kai Wynn, the dessert. He understands the potential of what this peace alliance represents for Deep Space Nine and his position on there. And he hasn't really talked about the bar and the Nagus and everything else, but the fortune of this guy for picking a death camp to open up his
food and beverage establishment. Yeah.
And what that's been able to turn into, because he's talking at this point about expanding operations, because as they reestablish not friendship, but peace with the Cardassians, he's expecting to see an influx of Cardassian travelers. He's already set up to handle this. He knows what these guys are all about from the death camp days, the good old days. And he wants to capitalize on it. And it's going to start with goodwill gestures here of showing these scientists that they are welcome and that he has a place that they can establish. I like he's talking about renting out the place. Did he say what the shop next to his was?
He just says that it's going out of business.
And he's got big plans because peace is good for business. And the line that dragged me in on it was Dax, who's a big fan of Ferengis. It's like, yes, was it the 34th rule of acquisition or something? Peace is good.
So she says it's the 34th. Quark corrects her saying that it's the 35th, and it's actually the 34th is war is good for business.
He corrects her. They're easy to confuse. What's the previous one? And like, I'd say like the disdain or like the stank he has on his face. Like, well, obviously, it's the war is good for business. Like, that was such a good exchange right there. I went back and watched again. That's why I restarted the episode and brought her in. I also love that he shows his willingness to like really go deep to make future Cardassian guests feel welcome with clear intention on facilitating dogfights.
Yes. I will start a chicken fight like arena where maybe some chickens will show up and fight each other. Sisko looming in the background while he says that, like purposefully shooting Armin Shimon very small, and Sisko like crossing his arms, standing above him. Like, are you seriously just talking about how you're going to start committing crimes right in front of me? I'm right here looming behind you, you son of a bitch.
The Federation doesn't condone cockfighting. Sorry, bro. It's Vole fights. Were Vole the vermin that were infesting the station, or is Vole something new?
Yes. Voles are the things that were infesting the station when I think O'Brien contacted who was it? He contacted somebody.
It was Golovec, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Golovec. That's right. Yeah, and Golovec just like said, "Ha ha, sucker, eat it."
I thought it was also interesting the throwaway dialogue that O'Brien had to go back in and reprogram the replicators in the Cardassian guest quarters to do Cardassian food. And they also do throw in that he's brought the environmental controls way up and it's now hot and uncomfortable, which we established in Techno Nor. Great continuity, which doesn't surprise me at this point, but this is established stuff, and I thought it was great.
There is no flaws in their drywall. They take all the time in the world to spackle. So concentrate. So this fun little teaser, which doesn't have a lot to do with the episode, it's really just there for Quark to show up and do his thing. We get the real teaser in the very last second when we're back in Sisko's office. Kira's like, "Hey, is a Vedic Yarka here to see you?" And a guy who I think everyone recognizes on first glance and is a bit of a that guy actor shows up. Eric Avari steps in and gives him a prophecy of doom to conclude the teaser. Briefly, Eric Avari is basically your go-to guy when you need wizened religious man.
Not vaguely, strongly Middle Eastern. They're sitting there at the craft services table, and it's with Sadiq what?
Oh, Sadiq Al-Faisal, yeah.
It's like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do after this Star Trek thing. And this guy, Eric Avari, is like, bro, I'm getting a little long on the tooth. Let me pass the torch of being Middle Eastern guy. I'm going to give you the keys to the castle because I can't be doing Stargates forever here. You are going to have to inherit the helm, the mantle of being the go-to Middle Eastern guy. This episode, on top of being solid and great, it's interesting when they bring out the big guest star casting, because sometimes it's for like real dud episodes. It's like, I don't know, we'll find something.
Including Eric Avari, who unfortunately we've seen before in Terra Nova as the Dirt Man.
Not the best. I also think about that episode a lot too. Like that, I'm glad we did watch Enterprise. There were some good stories in there, and even the bad episodes could still have good stories in there somewhere. I have him in my notes for that, but there is great casting all over in the place. are all over the place in this one. And I thought his performance was especially strong because he shows up and he's like, hey, by the way, I'm here to deliver some really important news. I know you have this mission coming up where you're going to try to establish a communication gateway through the wormhole. Actually, you need to not do that because there's this prophecy from like 4,000 years ago or whatever. And it says that you are going to collapse the wormhole. So you should stop that. And his performance through this entire episode never hits preachy, never hits condemning or judgmental or like Bible shaky. And really rides the line of like, I have full buy-in. Like, I'm telling you, the walls are blue, and I'm not going to twist your arm on it, but like, look over there, that straight, flat surface, that's the wall. It's blue. You see that, right? Like,
it's this kind of certain another role he has that is like probably I don't think a lot of our audience is necessarily going to know him from. He plays Nicodemus in The Chosen, which is like prestige drama if it was attempting to adapt the Gospels. It does adapt the Gospels into prestige TV. It does a pretty good job of it, by the way. But his character in that, he delivers on a performance very much the same way because he's a religious figure attempting essentially to figure out who Jesus is as he's going through his ministry, and he's kind of like a observer in the background, right? Like a sort of almost audience insert. And much of what you're saying there of like he finds this line of somebody who has this like quiet certainty that doesn't require him to be big, but you just get this energy off of him of like you should probably believe him. It's what he's best at when he's like when he was in The Mummy, right? Like when was the head of the he's the representative of the group that's trying to keep the mummy from being found. That's working at the Cairo library, right? And he like has that big final stand, 2/3 of the way through the movie or whatever. Same kind of energy. That's what he's best at. Aside from being Middle Eastern guy, which, like you said, he kind of handed to Cynical Faisal afterwards.
So the prophecy he's delivering is Trakor's third prophecy. When the river wakes, stirred once more at the Tujinar's side, 3 vipers will return to their nest in the sky. When the vipers try to peer through the temple gates, a sword of stars will appear in the heavens. The temple will burn, and its gates shall be cast open. We touched on prophecy. Gosh, it was the episode, I think, where Vedic Bareil was poised to take Kai, and he ends up backing off, right?
Correct. He has those orb experiences that kind of tell him he should do that. That's why he interpreted it anyway.
And me, on my first time watch, is like, obviously Vedic Bareil's dirty as fuck, and these prophets are like, yo, I can't have some red-handed fool, some murderer, some Cardassian's collaborator sitting in this Kai seat. Only good people can be in the Kai seat, and that absolutely was not the case because they did such a good job in that episode making these prophecies so malleable. And that's really the thrust of this episode, again, is reinforcing that like you can get what it's like logic. You can get whatever you want in that moment out of these prophecies with the phrasing. And it's a conversation that Kai Wynn has had with Bareil and Kira Nerys of like, I'm right and you're wrong, and here's why. And it's a solid pitch.
It is.
And this guy's interpretation up front is that you're going to collapse the wormhole, and you need to not do this.
And there is some dialogue when we cut back where he's explaining. We get the background we've already talked about, right? This is something that apparently Kai Wynn was told about, doesn't care because she's pressing forward with wanting this alliance to occur, that the Vedic Assembly already knows. Like this is something where he has already tried and failed to make a case. We'll find out it's even deeper than that he was in fact defrocked entirely as a Vedic as a consequence of his prophesizing. And he's not moved from his position, but he doesn't raise his voice. He specifically makes his case and then he leaves. And when he reappears again to have a conversation with Kira, it's much the same way of him delivering like kind of what needs to be said to everyone in the moment without him even knowing, which is I think very well resolved in the last scene of the episode. So the next thing that happens is the Cardassian scientists show up. So they meet the 2 scientists, Ulani Balor and Gloria Rajal, when they arrive, I don't know how else to put this. Dr. Belor looks exactly like I would imagine Robin Williams would look like as a female Cardassian. She's like Mrs. Doubtfire looking Robin Williams. I swear to God, you take a look at any screenshot you want of this show and look at her and you tell me that that couldn't have been Robin Williams in drag in terms of the face.
Meanwhile,
it's just
Dr. Galore over there can get it. They brought her in. I'm like, what space hottie is lurking under this makeup? And who is she going to have a sexual tension moment with? Because we don't get eyes like that behind makeup for no reason.
And so you got to know something about this particular space hottie, Peter, because everyone else is going to know it and they're going to tell you about it.
Yep.
She's played by a lady by the name of Tracy Scoggins. Now, Tracy Scoggins is somebody that we don't know. But if you like Babylon 5, you know who she is. She is the captain of Babylon 5 in the 5th season. And has, been a regular of the sci-fi convention world as a consequence. And she did this show, obviously, before she got that role. But that is who she is. And she was a peak 90s hottie, sci-fi 90s hottie. And that is evident through her work. So this is a veteran of putting shit on her face and getting those eyes to do all the work for her.
Well, she's a human in Babylon 5 because I dug her up. I was more interested in Ulani Belor, who you've said looks like Robin Williams. Something about the way she carried herself and her face. For a second, I was like, damn, is that the actress that played Commander Shelby? But it is, in fact, Jessica... No, it wasn't.
No, her name is Wendy Robbie.
Wendy Robbie, who is from Twin Peaks, primarily.
Correct.
She's the eye patch cheerleader lady who has freakish strength. She is the mom lady from People Under the Stairs. She is all over the B-movie horror scene, and I think a really strong get for both of these. Like, you've got very recognizable actresses here. Again, you're putting them under a lot of makeup. And I love the fact that they're bringing in bigger guns than normal, because this could have been throwaway central casting, and it's not. Yeah. Are either of these characters going to be reoccurring? And I hope they are.
They are not.
Damn, man.
I know. I know.
I'm sure they're both
everyone. It's like we get so spoiled for the fact so many of these fucking characters can tend to show back up over and over again that we want it to be the case with everyone that's interesting, but they just don't have enough show,
Well, I think it's very fair to believe that they're both going to be dead by the time before they even get back to Cardassia after this little stunt.
Yeah, true. A little bit of false confidence that they're not going to suffer consequences for what they end up doing.
A little bit of Bashir comes in as he is doing a walk and talk with, I think, Nerys, maybe. He's talking about how Morn's sick. Oh, God, I thought Moran had an iron gut. Nope, he apparently got sick drinking some on-the-house free Kanar. Just Quark over there trying to purge those 3 cases he has. Too good to just pour it down the space toilet, so he's just giving it away for free.
I did also appreciate when the 2 ladies show up, they kind of are like, oh man, we've had so much political pressure over this. Like, thanks for being cool. They just immediately set them up as being extremely sympathetic. You're supposed to like these 2. They're not going to be the villains, or you're supposed to think they're not going to be the villains, which is ultimately true. But and they're very appreciative of Kira. Like, they make a point of saying, like, I know this is probably really hard for you. Thanks. And it's a nice way to make it more difficult for Sisko and for Kira to take a step that would like disadvantage them or do something to them as it relates to the prophecy, because they're doing nothing whatsoever to create any kind of antagonism they could use as an excuse.
The amount of world building that they do through these scientists for Cardassia is monumental, because everything we've seen out of Cardassia has been military apparatus. The only sympathetic figures that we've been posed to was Kira's fake dad, who is part of this dissidence movement and had to flee. The only females that we've really seen have been Obsidian Order agents and dirty judges who were trying to set Miles O'Brien up for stealing photon torpedo heads on behalf of the Maquis. So Let's just talk about them for a minute. We find out through them that in Cardassian society, men are more military roles, and that the sciences are dominated by women.
Yeah.
We find out that they, I don't think, are particularly happy with the never-ending. Was it in Perpetual Service? What was the book that Garrick likes?
Oh, Never Ending Sacrifice.
Guys love that World War II movie. Women, I don't think, are that into it.
No.
They don't like the amount of oversight that Central Command and Obsidian Order has. They don't even like eating Cardassian food. And let that one soak in. To live in a culture where you want anything to do but that. So there's a real like North Korean vibe here, I think.
I agree.
We're happy to get off this planet. We recognize that what happened to Bajor was fucking terrible. And for you as the highest ranked Bajoran to not have put a hard no on us coming over here, like, we understand what you've gone through, and we deeply appreciate you giving us the chance to mend this bridge and maybe give us a chance to get the fuck out of our awful life and over to here where we can eat some French fries. The amount of facial acting that they do is great, because as the third quote unquote signed Dr. Obsidian Order, where it just has it written all over her fucking
Dr. Real Bitch. Yeah. Dr. Suspicious as fuck.
I'm Dr. Order, Obsidian Order. Let's see.
Doctor here to make the plot happen.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Nefarious. They're not spies. They were never meant to be spies. Do you think that their mission was, because there's doubt cast by Jadzia Dax right off the rip, like, I don't buy this thing's gonna fucking work. The numbers don't look right to me.
Yeah.
What do you think the real function of these women are? Do you think it's just the Obsidian Order putting them there as viable scientist patsies?
Yeah, I think they thought that they could make it work, and I think that this was all set up so that they could purposely collapse a wormhole. I think that's absolutely what the Obsidian Order's plan was. Fuck the Gamma Quadrant. There's monsters over there. Fuck them.
Let's talk about that more as we get deeper. But the point is, these two women on the front end, and it's important there's only two because the prophecy calls for three, and of course, Vedic, what's his name? Vedic Avari?
Yeah, Vedic Yarka.
Vedic Eric.
Yeah, Vedic Eric, yes.
Is like, there's three Vipers. And of course, Vipers coming home to roost. It's going to be a Cardassians coming back to Tarek Nor. And I think it's pretty clear that Gloria has a relationship with Tarek Nor. Because as they get deeper into the episode, the first phase of the science project is getting Deep Space Nine set up to accept this carrier wave, and to her horror, she finds out that Miles O'Brien has brought this old Cardathian death trap up to Federation code standards.
Yes. They don't say it, but she strikes me as somebody who was a science officer on the station for some reason, or has worked there as an engineer or something, because she's too familiar with its construction and its technology in specific to the station for it to be otherwise. And yeah, this old Cardassian death trap has safety standards now. Another great moment of like when the array doesn't work and they're talking about like, didn't you think this could happen? He's like, oh, it was only a 2% chance, and everyone's like looks at her like, yeah, Federation science cares about that. 2% chance that the wormhole will be destroyed. That's some shit we would like to have known.
It's all great continuity, because we saw like their power output, like their thresholds are just fucking terrible. But she gets in and she's like, all right, here's what we need out of the station power performance. Why am I not being able to hit this? Let me take the access panel off and get down. I know what I'm going to see in here. Wait, this isn't at all what I was expecting to see. Where's
this wiring is to code. We need some hot wired shit.
Where's all the disintegration force fields? Wait, where's all the poison gas? What have you done with the poison gas? I can't hit these numbers without the poison. I was banking on that Cyclone B. What have you done? Two battery back.
You guys took out all the Cyclone B canisters. How dare you? You've defiled this place.
We use those as transistors. What are you doing?
Yeah, we took Erica out of the station soundtrack too while we were at it. You, come on.
I could use a snack and a replicated phaser turret. What do you mean you've removed the phaser turret? Resets.
That was the best part.
I love the interplay between her and O'Brien because O'Brien has had a very hard time getting this station presentable, and he's got a lot to be proud of. And being
the A- plot of her and O'Brien is perfectly paced. You get to pay off, like you say, like O'Brien spent all this time getting this fucking heap of junk working correctly. Most of this plot for the first 2 seasons is him bitching about that, right? And then here comes this Cardassian lady who's complaining about everything he's done. And he, of all people, has to sit through it. I mean, we'll get to it here in a little bit, but his facial expressions in the background as he is forced to endure the presence of Cardassians insulting his work quietly. And then for some reason Sisko's like, oh, who are the 2 people I'm going to go have dinner with them? Well, there's Dax. She's basically like the informal ambassador I have. She's really suitable for it. Who else? Oh yeah, Miles O'Brien, a man who has killed the most Cardassians here aside from Kira. That's who I'll pick.
Who was just unfairly imprisoned. Like, I need the thing where they're eating like, Chief, you're not eating your food. Is there a problem? Yeah, I'm having a hard time chewing it because I'm missing my fucking molar in case you forgot about the time I was abducted and kangaroo reported to my death.
Yeah, why is that, Julian? Sorry, why'd you make Miles do that?
Shouldn't Horn Dog Julian be out here for the space hotties?
Yeah, come on.
She is not giving him any respect again because in their culture, men are terrible at sciences and engineering, and him being there is like some great sexism.
Oh yeah, why don't you go get me a cup of tea? And he's just like, yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, okay.
Miles O'Brien's capacity for diplomacy, I don't think can be understated. He is such a value-add crew guy. Like, get yourself someone who can not only fix all the toilets and slit all the throats, but also is not going to create diplomatic incidents despite just being unfairly imprisoned and faced with torture. Like,
and then get hit. I mean, okay, let's pay off the rest of the A- plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's first they're arguing. And Miles is getting shut out, and he's pissed about it. Eventually, it escalates to him finally asserting dominance, right? He's like, you know what? I am tired of you being a bitch about me doing what I've done here. We get all this the interesting background about, women dominate the sciences in Cardassia and the sexism and all of that. And he's like, well, this man knows how to do things on this station. And if you'll take a step out of the way, I know what you want to do. I know how it needs to be done. And why don't you just let me do it? Huh? How about that? How about you just shut up and let me do it? Because I'm done enduring this. And then she's like, okay, hands him the spanner or whatever and take a step back. And the look that she gives him, like, I liked that a lot. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the experience I just had, and that's when you realize this is how Cardassians flirt with each other.
It's the Scooby-Doo fucking mystery machine pan across the front seat to Fred. That's my fetish. Oh. Because, yes, the backbone of the Cardassian family creation program is negging. So let me just literally do a quick count here.
Your aggression was what made me determine you wanted a physical relationship. Like, I mean, I guess O'Brien would definitely be aggressive as it relates to Cardassians.
So here's a scorecard real quick. He was already firmly in the running to hook up with super hottie Bajoran engineer / would-be assassin for Vedic Bareil, right?
Correct.
Who actually did kill a Starfleet guy.
That is correct. Like melted one of his dudes.
Laser hallway. She was ready to go. The other end of the Bajoran conflict spectrum, he's got also too, like, this dirty B. Like, this guy is killed. This is how much what's her name? Gilora? This is how much she hates Cardassian. Not only does she hate Cardassian cuisine, she hates Cardassian. I'm sorry, this guy, this well-known war criminal over here, who was just on, like, again, the other end of the coin, was just on, like, Starship Troopers, fucking... The execution is on all channels all day or whatever, right?
Right.
She's got to know who fucking Miles O'Brien is and his many crimes against Cardassian, all of the Cardassians that he has killed. She's watching the O.J. Simpson trial, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I will bear you many children. We will water down, like, what weird breeding fantasy does this lady have?
I want to bang a serious war criminal who has murdered many members of my species.
Dilute this proud Cardassian gene pool with your terrible haggis eating ways.
It
What else has
pays
he
off
landed?
beautifully in that, like, she hits on him hard. He's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, drops all of that, and he's like, I have a child and a wife, and I'm very happily married."
Are
And
you?
like, he, as we know, he is. But and then he like does the classic like, "Oh, I'm not interested in you at all," and it sounds super insulting. And she's like, "Fine, I'll go." It's like, "Wait, no, you're very beautiful. I just didn't. Oh, fuck. All right, well." I just
Point
like
being, she comes to respect him for his engineering and his steady
correct.
hand. And as we push the plot forward, what happens is they take the Defiant. This is the first, I think, use of the Defiant that makes sense to me because they're going into the Gamma Quadrant to do
Yeah,
this. And
the
like,
danger zone. Yeah.
they deploy this relay, they set the thing out. It starts shooting its laser beam at the wormhole. And the point here is to take 2 tin cans, connect them with a string, and again, create a way for ships in the Gamma Quadrant to communicate with Deep Space Nine. And wouldn't you know it, as they pop out of the wormhole, there's a comet.
Yeah.
And that comet sure does fit the round hole that the prophecy has. I'm sorry, the sword-shaped hole of the prophecy's puzzle box, which Kira's sitting there like looking at Sisko like, this fucking thing. Doesn't that look like a sword to you? And
There's a
instead of
really
just
critical conversation that happened before that when Vedic Eric finally has a conversation with Kira in the hallway. Of we find out that Kira has really tried to suppress like addressing the fact that Sisko is the emissary of the prophets and doesn't deal with him on that basis and keep her religious and professional lives separate. She makes very clear that that's what she's been doing, which is important because we've really not had to address this question yet, right? Like, she works for a man who's supposed to be the most important person within her religion as her superior officer, and she doesn't talk about it with him. And this is Vedic Eric saying, those days are over. You're talking to him about it now. You have been chosen by the prophets to help the emissary, obviously. How else can we possibly interpret where you are in life? It's such a perfect like thing for her to take and run with from this point forward. She's like, yeah, that's probably true. Right? And you believe that she thinks that true is true because we know how sincerely she believes in her religion. That's, we've had the adventures on Planet Mike Ementrout where she had this whole crisis of faith that Kaiopaka had to help her through, and the weight that she carries and all that, and that she's performed some religious ceremonies on a limited basis as it relates to her faith. And this is the first time she's basically being told you can no longer keep these things separate. You actually have to embrace both. And that means, yeah, you're the ranking Bajoran officer on the space station, and also you're here to help the man who's our Messiah figure things out. And this leads to her finally having that conversation we've already talked about with Sisko, and having to tell him like, no, I do think you're the emissary, and that all of this is real.
the
And
legitimacy counter, the legitimacy counter is clicking up. The 2 Vipers turned into 3 with the arrival of Dr. Evil.
correct.
They've come through the wormhole. Hey, here's this sword.
Yep.
The stakes are very high in this. We're talking again about potentially destroying the wormhole, which is also their Bajoran heaven. You could strand yourself in the Gamma Quadrant. You could fuck up the entire, economy of what this wormhole represents. They have this meeting about like what belongs on the bridge of a Starfleet vessel, and it's not prophecy. And I like Jadzia Dax and her use in this as the foil to Kira, because again, there's no venom here. There's nothing
Nope.
unreasonable being said. You have Kira Nerys posing very common sense topics, and I guess I could use some of that out of Jadzia, like, hey, we do know that these are timeless creatures that can communicate to the past because they have knowledge of, like, this is all well within whatever. And she's like, Jadzia's end is, you need to move through this. you can't let this prophecy taint what's going on. You got to be an officer first. You got to use the facts on the table. And again, the important part in all of this isn't, are these space gods legit? We know they're legit semi-omniscient aliens. It's, can you trust these prophecies? These very old things written a long time ago that have been through hell and
interpreted and reinterpreted. This is, a common concept as relates to religion in the real world, of course. And it not only is, I think, Dax well used as a sort of, I'm going to give you the Starfleet sort of like agnostic reminder as to like how it is that you should probably approach this question as a seasoned space professional. On the other hand, you have a very clever use of Odo, who doesn't factor in huge this episode, but he's the first person that has this conversation with Sisko about prophecy, because he's the one that reveals that Vedic Eric has been defrocked, that he's got a whole like kind of subcult of followers that believe this about these prophecies. And that Odo calls Sisko out to say, like, you really don't want any of this to be true. Let's be honest. You don't like being the emissary. You don't want to be the emissary. And you don't want any of this prophecy shit to be true. And that's coloring your decisions, which is accurate. Odo calls the ball right where it is. And it's what starts him down the road of, do I have to take this seriously? And then after that is when Dax comes in and say, you should temper how seriously you're taking this. And it provides a lot. And again, no one brings venom. No one's right or wrong, but it's all part of the story, and it's all part of the picture that he has to consider.
Also all pressure, and that's why I'm saying Sisko gets caught in so many pinch points, and each one's wonderful to watch happen. Also, back to this guy getting defrocked. I want the scene where like Kai Wynn's sitting behind her desk, and like this guy, like, hey, here's yet another prophecy coming true, and like the amount of prophecies that Kai has to just dismiss or dance around each day, again, because of the high adaptability of these things to like, no, we cannot reintroduce spicy chicken sandwiches to the menu in the medical assembly, because here's the 5th prophecy of Nazgul. I also like when he pulls Kira off to talk to her. There's no ready room.
Yeah,
the bunker Defiant is a warship. It doesn't have science bays. It doesn't have holodecks. It doesn't have a ready room. So when it's time for real talk, you have to go to the bunk beds.
They build a ready room set later, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We have to go to the high drama Thunderdome, also known as the prison. Also, no brig. Yeah. Still no brig at this. They've had 2 reasons to put people in the brig at least. And there, I can't believe that there's a brig at this point. But she's like, listen, man, again, these things are racking up. At what point are you going to start paying attention to this? And Sisko makes the decision, we're going to push forward. So again, they're pushing this carrier wave through. There's been doubt cast on the science by Jadzia Dax. I think these 2 scientists are confident they can actually do it, and that they are dismissing the work that O'Brien said Starfleet did put in initially to try to get past this. And what I like about the episode is that nobody had what was possible. Starfleet clearly was incapable of doing it. Ultimately, I think the Cardassian attempt would not have worked. It's everybody's efforts coming together, and the mistake at the end, which is, all painting a picture of fate, right? That this was all the product of a predestined occurrence where all 3 sides had to come together to do this, to accomplish something huge. So I don't think that this was... There's no way that the Obsidian Order could have known that this comet was over there. Because that's what really threatens to destroy the wormhole, is as they do this carrier wave, something fucks up.
So I see what you're saying. I think that this is the sequence of events that's unspoken. She's there to see if this thing will go down or not, because it's to their interest to have a communication buoy. It's to everyone's interest to have this in place, right? There's no one's interest is poorly served by having a listening post on the other side of the wormhole that can communicate something before it happens. However, when it's tested and fails, and this whole comet search circumstance enters into the chat, I could foresee Dr. Evil going back to her handlers and saying, we could destroy the wormhole like right now. Should we do that? And they're like, yes, absolutely. There are monsters there. See to it. And that's where her sabotage of the Defiant and the fashion that she does it starts to make sense.
let me pose this. And again, I'm willing to put the discussion in on this because I think it's all well written. The initial attempt fucks with the gravity in the wormhole. And I think maybe that might have been a genuine attempt to fuck the wormholes by messing with the gravity. As a byproduct, it sucks the the comet.
Right, which is a total target of opportunity.
And then she escalates things by fucking up the phaser enhancements. I think the goal that they actually state on screen is the Obsidian Order wants this project to fail because the Obsidian Order does not want the Peace Treaty to move forward. And that's, again, great angling of the Cardassian Obsidian Order / Central Command conflict, because it was Gul Evik? Was it Gul Evik that handled the chewed up and spit out negotiations?
No, it was not Gulavec. I think this is more the tension that was in the episode Defiant when Tom Riker stole the ship and they found the ships in the Araya system or whatever. And like that Central Command didn't know. Like that's part of that tension that's still going on in the background, that the Cardassian government and the Cardassian CIA are no longer on the same page. And so the government wants this treaty and the Obsidian Order does not.
Right.
So that's what we're seeing when it comes to that. And I think it's when the target of opportunity comes into play with the comet, they're like, yeah, make sure the fucking wormhole gets collapsed. Who wants to deal with that?
So the beam fucks up the wormhole. Gravity gets goofy. It sucks the comet over. At no point does anybody pose the question to Commander Sisko and say, remind me again why we didn't just wait 15 minutes for this thing to blow out of here before we started doing...
Why do we have to do it now?
Before we start doing Space Black Mesa over here? Like,
yeah.
Are we on a timeline? Were we trying to beat the clock to get back before we run into overtime here? Like, what was our motivation for this? They fly back to the station. That's where we have the disclosure of like, by the way, we did know that there was a 2% chance that this might happen. That's within tolerance for us. Or maybe the Obsidian Order just said, fuck it, you're going to do it anyways. Again, I love that the science people are like, we also agree that 2% is significant, but we don't have the authority to disclose these things because we live in a police state. That's where we get the Galara O'Brien sexy time in the Jeffries tube as he's reprogramming these phasers. They fly back over. So does the Defiant not have like regular phaser banks? It only has these pulse cannons?
Well, it actually has both. We will see that later on. But I think to date, we've only seen the pulse cannons.
They do my favorite thing, which is fly over and shoot the problem. There's been some sabotage, believe it or not, by Dr. Evil.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah, not me. Again, through all of this, the other two Cardassian scientists are just looking at her like, you fucking bitch. You bitch.
And, yeah, so ultimately, the scientists out the Obsidian Order agent because Gloria has come to respect O'Brien and doesn't want to take this massive L for having made it this huge mistake, and says like, yeah, that amateur hour mistake isn't a mistake at all. It's just some sabotage that she did because she's a fucking Obsidian Order agent, so fuck her. Which again, like, bold choice, Cotton. We'll see how that works out for you.
I hate my family and I want everybody sent off to gulags.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, will she be rewarded for failure? Yeah, probably not. But, darling, I think that you might be in some trouble when you get back home.
My higher-ups in the Science Academy will clearly protect me against the SS over here.
Yeah, no, that absolutely famous last words. And so we get to see actually a better shot of the Deep Space Nine's of the Defiance shuttlecraft, which is much more like a fighter craft, right? It's like more armored.
Man, it looks like the fucking Shuttle Pod 1 from Enterprise. It's got absolutely.
And you know, they end up using that to create a subspace bubble using the warp drive on it to contain the radiation that would be harmful. And so it sets up this beautiful moment where Sisko is like, I'm the emissary of the prophets. I'm literally going to physically protect them personally. Kira extrapolates what Vedic Eric told him earlier. Like, I have to help you. Like, that's my job. My job is to help you. And now I'm doing both of that on a religious level and on a Starfleet level. And of course, it works. They managed to contain most of the radiation. And it turns out the prophecy was fulfilled. It's just, of course, that they were misinterpreting it. The idea is that the gates would be swung open because just enough of that radiation got out that it created this lining within the wormhole that allows the communication uh, signal to be received. And now the experiment is working fine. And turns out that the doors being flown open wasn't a bad thing. It was the thing that was supposed to occur. And it took the emissary to see to it that it occurred.
Again, great writing to let you adapt this prophecy into whatever story you want. By the end, it facilitates what actually happened. Again, it brings all sides of this story in to be necessary to get the end accomplishment, which is a functional subspace relay through the wormhole. Leaves things looking pretty rosy. We've established further good relations between the Cardassians and Federation and Bajor. We've got Sisko willing to start exploring these prophecies now because... And what a shaky bridge. Like, what if I had heeded this prophecy outright as it was presented to me? Like, he cannot... He has to be mindful that this stuff might be true, but he cannot just blindly follow this stuff.
Correct.
Because had he blindly followed it, he would have fucked himself. By trudging forward and ultimately taking Dax's advice, he did what was necessary to fulfill the prophecy that way. So
his act of faith was accepting that it was possible to be true and finding a way to see it come to fruition in a way that was good. Like, that's what's so perfect about the episode, is that he didn't have to blind, like you said, zealotry, blind acceptance was wrong. And in fact, at the last scene, Vedic Yarka like comes back up to say, "Oh shit, I was totally wrong. I allowed my pre-existing prejudice against the Cardassians to color my interpretation, and that's the lesson they've learned." And it's like a perfect example of like, why is Sisko the emissary of the prophets? He has no priors about any of this, and so he can find the way that the prophets need to make the things happen that need to happen, that otherwise no one else could.
I need the scene where Vedic Avari is like, "Oh yeah, I did misinterpret. Oh fuck, man, I got defrocked for nothing.
I ruined my career over this. Fuck." Although I of all the people in this episode, I wish reappeared was him, because they kind of set him up to be like this almost spiritual advisor to Sisko of like, tell me more prophecies. What the fuck else am I going to like? I believe this now. I believe it. It's all fine. Tell me all of it. Like, what else is going to go on?
The guest actors in this would have been welcome down the road. And in fact, I think that Galora, her decision to out the Obsidian Order agent, which is absolutely an act of suicide. Again, I think it would have made a lot of sense if she was the real Obsidian Order agent, and that this was all a setup to, again, give Obsidian Order agents better access to Starfleet personnel on DS9 to establish that trust so they could betray it later. I understand why they didn't do that, but I like that that's certainly a concern that these people should be having every step of the way.
Well, I think that wraps up our discussion of this episode. And while we'll be taking some time off, and there'll be an intermediary episode about Hellraiser available to everybody before we return to the friendly confines of Deep Space Nine. When we do, what episode will we be reviewing, sir?
Profit Motive, which we've got the time-honored tradition of moving profits and prophecy. So clearly we got a Ferengi episode here. When Grand Nagus Zek becomes a philanthropist and rewrites the rules of acquisition, Quark worries that he may have gone insane, and Bashir is nominated for a prestigious medical award. Well, it's about time. He did solve space polio and also create the cure to bullets.
Also, didn't he like accidentally clone a guy and then like set him free or something? Like, there's a lot going on with this guy.
Didn't he just bring Vedic Baral? Yeah, the guy's racking up fucking W's left and right over here. Just good move getting assigned to Deep Space Nine. Interesting. This is going to be a Odo directed episode.
Yes. So, we're continuing the tradition of our Trek actors becoming directors. Obviously, we've already had some Avery Brooks directed episodes that I think we were warmly received. And as far as Renee as a director, I think that he does quite a few here. I forget how many that there are. I think there's like some like 8, 9, 10 of them. I don't know. He does 8 of them. He does 8 episodes overall. So there's definitely like a flavor for him that we'll get to develop over time, hopefully. So, okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to Feature Please. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things you do with the show. We do appreciate it. We'll see you in a few weeks.